sharing from me, so.
All right, I'm going to do that.
Well, I can also just come up here and say, stop share, and now you can have it back.
Okay, did I get it?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, while she's getting Facebook all set up, just a little preview here. This is a Loon Cam 3, which isn't really announced, but what happened was we took down Loon Cam 2, and we got a call from a local lake that said, hey, we got a loon nest for the first time in 25 years. So before the Loon Cam was even put away, we went out and stuck it up. Now, the picture quality is terrible, because we're about 300 yards away from the loon nest rather than 30 feet. And so we can see there's a loon there. This loon should produce an egg, or the chick should hatch sometime around August 1st, which is what, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, I guess Saturday. So, but we don't know when the eggs were actually laid. So we're not quite sure when the chick should hatch. But anyway, there it is, and so I can show you a live Loon Cam as we progress through the presentation. Oh, there it looks like a duck is going by now. The wood ducks, pervasive wood ducks. So you said, Kelly, well.
Yeah, because if I keep arguing with this, I could potentially argue with it all night. I thought I threw the post up there, but it's not showing up, and I'm not sure why. And there's no reason to do that on camera. So I can always fight with it once you've started.
Okay. All right, I'm going to stop share, and then you can go ahead and get started.
All right, sounds good to me. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. This is our fifth nature talk of this season. Tonight we are having Bill Gassman, our notorious, I guess you could say, Loon Cam operator. Bill has been doing the Loon Cam for us for a good number of years, and it just keeps getting better and better every year, which is pretty great. And we're really lucky to have someone who has that much expertise and is that willing to just go out and deal with mud, water, rain, technical issues, bugs, all in the name of getting some really awesome information about loons up on the internet for everybody. So we're exceptionally lucky to have him giving a talk and doing all this work for us. Before I turn it over, I'm contractually obligated to give you guys my elevator minute. I'm Kelly, by the way. I can't remember if I actually introduced myself. But these presentations are brought to you by the Loon Preservation Committee. The Loon Preservation Committee has been active since 1975 with a mission to protect loons and their habitats in New Hampshire. Every year we have biologists out scouring the lakes, putting out signs, rafts, just spending lots of time out there watching the loons, making sure that they're protected and that they're able to breed successfully in New Hampshire. We also have a whole host of volunteers, of which Bill is one of them, who we would not be able to do our job without our volunteers. So big shout out to them, and particularly to Bill. And let's face it, you're not here to listen to me, you're here to listen to Bill. So I'm going to hand it over to him.
Thanks, Kelly. And good evening, or everybody, or if you're watching this as a replay, whatever time it is, good day. I'm actually quite honored to be in this position. 5 years ago, John Cooley, the head biologist at the LPC, walked up to me at a lobster event and said, "I hear you know something about cameras. Are you interested in helping us out with the Loon Cam?" So that was probably July 6 years ago, and then the following spring we got together and did the Loon Cam my first time. I think it was the third time the cam had actually been run. And I mean, it was a learning experience. And over the years, we have each year progressed a little bit, made improvements based on what we've learned, based on some of the mistakes we've made. As Kelly said, there's sometimes a lot of mud and bugs involved in putting the Loon Cam together. And so we've tried to minimize that as much as possible. We try to increase the quality of the picture. We try to increase the reliability so that I don't have to go out and reboot the modem every time the cable company decides to change something. Let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen, and we have a presentation, and we're going to jump in and out of the presentation to do a few other things as we go along, but we're going to start here. So this is one of the Loon cams that we've had over the years. I can't even tell you what year this one is, but as you can see, there's a post in the ground and or in the water, and we try to be about 30 feet away from the Loon nest itself, and then we run an Ethernet cable under the water to a internet connection and broadcast it to YouTube. So in a nutshell, that's what we're doing. I'll explain that in a little more detail as we go along. So the agenda tonight is I'm going to go through 5 or 6 slides just on a Loon cam overview, so that you sort of know what we're doing and where we've come from and all that. And then I've got a whole bunch of pictures that have come from the Loon cam over the years. I've got 5 years of pictures to choose from, so you know, it may be a little long, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. And then I'm going to get a little bit deeper into the weeds, and we're going to get into how does the camera work. I've had a couple requests from other Loon organizations, as well as some other folks that want to put cameras together. And so I've been asked to go deep, and I'm an engineer by trade, and I can go as deep, probably deeper than you want to hear. So that's at the end of the presentation, and then we also are going to have a few movies along the way, and I've got the Loon Cam live there at Loon Cam 3, and so we can bring up the actual interface and play with it if there's any interest in that.
Hey, Bill, it doesn't
Yeah.
look like you're currently sharing your screen if you're supposed to be yet.
Well, I thought I was, so let's try that again. Oh, yeah.
Hey, there we go.
All right. So I can run a Loon Cam, but I can't run a computer. How's that? Okay.
Awesome.
So to review, this is a picture of a Loon Cam from years ago, and it shows that 30 feet away and so forth. The agenda, like I said, we're going to get into the weeds a bit after we talk about the camera and what we've seen. And then if we have time at the end, we'll go into a little bit of Q&A. This picture here was from this Loon Cam 2 this year. We had a weird pair. The way they exchanged the nest is that the one loon would go way out into the outside the bay, and the other one would swim out to it. They'd frolic for a while, and then the other one would come back. So there was opportunity for good pictures. So the overall, the Loon Cam is live 24/7. We turn it on way before the nesting happens. We don't turn it off until the loons leave the nest. Sometimes they delay that a bit. We operate from early May. I think this year we were in probably May 5th or 6th, and we normally get done mid-July. And this year we have sort of a unofficial Loon Cam 3, so we're still in operation, but it's not taking any of my time because we're not moving it around or anything like that. It's been ongoing since 2014. And one of the, I think really one of the benefits that we've added over the years is this lively online chat community. Very vibrant would be one way of describing it. And I'll get into that a bit later. We've got an on-demand clip library. So over 5 years, there have been way over 100 little clips made, anywhere from 20 seconds to 20 minutes, that have been something cool. You know, whether it be an egg hatching, the nest changing, some of like a bird sitting on the nest. There's a variety of different things. Anytime something sort of strikes our fancy as, oh, that would be cool to make a movie out of, we put that away. And so that list has grown quite big over the years. It also links with other LPC outreach programs. So we are operational during May, and that's the Member a Day in May campaign, which runs. And then there's the annual or the general giving campaign. And so we try to promote that, and it's been reasonably successful in promoting LPC, which is really the purpose of the camera. It's there to do research. It's there to do outreach to help people understand about loons, and to really get people to understand the challenges that they have, and to appreciate how unique a bird it is. A lot of people get access to the Loon Cam through the loon.org site. This is the website of LPC. So loon.org/looncam it's still live, but it's not a live camera anymore. But the picture itself, the live picture itself, is there. If there's any sort of news about what's going on, it's there, because people want to know when's the eggs going to hatch, and did the mother come back, and all the various questions that people might ask. So we put that right there. We have a good description about what's going on, a little bit of detail about the camera itself, about the pair, and just in general, what's going on with these loons. And then we have Biff's blog, and Biff is a former employee at LPC. He's retired, but not completely. And so he writes a lot of blogs during the Loon Cam season, and also participates in the chat. And so we really appreciate that coming from Biff. And then just generally lots of information. Plus, of course, it's links to the rest of the LPC website. If you haven't poured through it, it's been renovated this year. There's a lot of new information on there, lots of really good pictures. And for those of you that want to renew your membership or donate, there's plenty of ways to do that. So we use YouTube Live as our mechanism. That's what you're watching right now. And we did move off of a different system. The first couple of years, we're on a system that was actually quite challenging. And so when we found YouTube and said, oh, this might work, it worked better than we could imagine. It's very easy to use. Everybody pretty much uses YouTube. It adapts to the user's device and network speed. So we can show as much data into the internet as we could possibly can with that camera. And if you're on a 1200 baud line, you can still get a frame or two now and then with a very fuzzy picture, but you're still getting it. And YouTube transcodes the picture into whatever you've got. So whether it's a small screen or a huge screen, a slow link, a very fast link, YouTube does all that adaptation. And it's hard to find services that will do that. And it's darn near impossible to find anyone to do it for free. So yeah, it's good. It has a 12-hour rewind, which is really good for us because things happen many times very quickly. A nest exchange or a nest egg turn may take 20 seconds to a minute. And then it's done. And it may not happen for another hour or two. So if somebody comes in and wants to see what's going on, they can look at the chat and say, an egg turn happened at 8:47. Well, they can rewind the picture to that time, and they can watch it up to 12 hours. So that's really cool. The chat is included with YouTube, and again, very, very good. There's lots of viewer statistics, so we get to see how many people have used it, where they're coming from, what time of day they're looking at it. We don't see who did it. We aren't down to the person, but there's this aggregate information that gives us a feeling for how is it working out. I guess the thing as an engineer and as somebody responsible for keeping it working that I like is it just works. And it's very rare that I'm debugging a problem that's a YouTube problem. So that's good. And then the best part is it's free. I did look into another service that would have been somewhat comparable, but it was $1,000 a month versus free. So yeah. The chat is it has its good and its bad points. I mean, it is a live interaction. There are many regulars. We've got folks that are local to New Hampshire or Maine and the states surrounding us. We've got folks from all over the US. Minnesota is pretty well represented, New York, Virginia, Illinois. There's some people from California, and I say regulars. These are the folks that are on more than I'm on. They just seem to live on the chat, and some of the folks are true birders, and maybe have 4 or 5 YouTube screens up at one time, and they've been very helpful because they help us answer the questions, because LPC it doesn't have the time. They're short-staffed as is. They've got 100 nests to be taken care of in New Hampshire. They don't have the time to be on the chat answering the questions. And so the regulars tend to have an answer that, if they're wrong, they get told. So it's pretty self-correcting. I also should mention we have global folks. We've got folks that are from Sweden. We have some folks from Russia. We have some folks from Ukraine. We've got some folks from Japan. It's a lot from Canada. There's just an amazing wealth of people, and I would say that the camaraderie is fairly good. The chatter tends to be very Loon focused, and if it's not, we try to bring it back to that. And so just by having everybody have a common interest, we learn about each other a little bit and have a lot of fun. People do put notes about timestamps. So generally, if the egg is turned, somebody's going to type in there, egg turn at 8:47. And the last couple of years, it's been very amazing, but usually about the end of the season, somebody starts a fundraising campaign for the Loon Cam itself. This year, I think we raised $1,350. And so that does go a long way to meeting our goal of providing the best and most reliable pictures that we possibly can. Our budget's about $1,000 a year, and to have that, that plus a little bit more means that we can buy more batteries, we can upgrade. Like this year, we're going to have to clean the domes, the plastic dome on the camera is going to have to be changed. So, yeah, it's a self-funding operation, and we do appreciate people's support. Okay, so now the next section, talk a little bit about what we see. And we're at a Loon's nest, so the basic thing we're looking for is that cycle of reproduction, which is LPC's main goal, is to make more loons for New Hampshire, and to understand why they are challenged and how those challenges can be met. So we're going to see some things about challenges to successful hatches. We do see, and I don't know if I can say this word correctly, but anthropomorphic personalities. Now, this is a controversial topic because LPC, the scientists, say, oh, no, loons don't have human characteristics. But I'll tell you, looking at them as much as I do, you can sort of tell what they're thinking. Like look at the picture right here. You got that little chick sitting beside that mother loon. And, they're sitting there happy. So I don't know. I believe that when we think about this, it's probably true sometimes. There's also unexpected behaviors. We'll talk about some of that. Other forms of nature, because we see ducks and birds and all sorts of other things. There's some drama. We have territorial disputes. We've lost the mother for 36 hours. We've lost an egg. Where the heck is that egg? And so the drama tends to be accelerated by the chat because everybody's talking about it. And so it does get interesting. We've had tragic events. Not all nests produce 2 eggs that hatch into healthy chicks. And so we always try to be prepared for that. We hope for the best, but we have to be prepared for the worst. But the reward at the end of the long season, it's a couple of weeks to nest, and then it's 28 days or 4 weeks to incubate the egg. Finally, those chicks hatch, and you only get to see them for hours to maybe 2 or 3 days, and then they're gone, and that's it. They're off to their breeding ground. And so we are very appreciative of those few moments that we get with the chicks because they're funny and they grow so fast, and it's really fun to watch. So we're going to go through the whole reproduction cycle a little bit here. This is a picture of the camera sometimes takes great pictures and sometimes a little bit fuzzier. This is one of the more fuzzy ones, but this is basically a mud pile. So when the loons first start coming back after the ice melts, they're trying to figure out where they're going to put their nest this year. We try to convince them this is where you want to go because this is where the camera is, but they fooled us a few times and we had to move the camera. But they're starting to test out different parts of the nest. So they'll put some mud here, they'll go over a different patty and they'll put some mud there, and they sit on it for a while and check it out, and this can go on for a couple of weeks. Here we see the female sitting on the nest and the male with a little bit of a gleam in his eye. Here's another picture of a similar part of that cycle. So then once the eggs are getting ready to hatch or to be laid, they really start building that nest, and it's fun to watch. And it's when you can tell the egg's going to come imminently because all of a sudden they get frenzied about building that nest, and it's amazing how much they can put together in like overnight or in one day. Another picture of just the loon sitting there. Here's a picture that we actually got the egg being laid. I've got more graphic pictures, but I figured this was probably a good compromise. That was from last year, and then we end up with those typically 2 eggs sitting in the nest. And at that point, the first stage is over. Now it's time to incubate those eggs, and that can take, like I said, 28 days. And for those periods of time, sometimes they'll leave the nest for hours at a time. It makes us nervous, but they seem to, it doesn't seem to matter. And it can get a little repetitive because within 4 weeks of watching a loon change the eggs and change nests and so forth. So we've got plenty of pictures of that. Here's an example of changing turning the eggs. Another picture of that. Here's a picture of the one loon coming up to the other and saying, hey, it's my turn to watch the eggs. And this is one of those anthropomorphic moments because, and especially in this next picture, this is on Loon Cam 1, we have seen literally the loon in the water peck at the loon on the nest and say, get off, it's my turn. And yes, that's putting human emotions onto a bird, but I think it we could tell what's going on. And then finally, of course, those go off. And then every time the nest change happens or the egg turns happens, that's our chance to look at those eggs. Are they still looking good? That's really what we're looking for, is are there still 2 eggs and do they still look good? We also get to see down the throats of loons now and then. Now this, unfortunately, is a little bit blurry, but sometimes the sun is just perfect and we're looking right down their throats, and they have these teeth is the wrong word, but they're like little barbs in their mouth that prevent the fish from coming back out when they eat fish. And so sometimes those are very, very clear, and usually brings up the question in the chat rooms, like, what the heck are those? Because it's not something you normally see in the loon anatomy. Sometimes it's just so still, the water is perfect, and we get these shots that are just a really good reflection. And this particular one actually is already upside down. So there's the real picture. But it's at night or some of those moments are just so good to be watching what's going on. I mean, if you think about it, we're taking 20 frames, 20 pictures a second to produce the video stream. And we're doing this over about 6 weeks. And so it's, something like 55 million pictures are being taken. And so some of those pictures come out pretty good. Some of them not so good. We see the loon in its threat position quite often. Sometimes it's because there's somebody getting too close. Sometimes I swear it's just you see reflection in the water, or maybe some frog, or you can't tell. We'll bring back the camera and look all around like, what the heck is that loon worried about? And we can't find anything. Other times it's like, oh yeah, there it is. So this particular picture, and I've got so many of these, the loon swam up literally right under the camera. It was probably 2 or 3 feet from the camera post. So I pointed the lens just straight down, and the less you're zoomed in, the better the quality of the picture. So we got some really, really good quality pictures of this loon. And it was almost like he was visiting us. It was just a probably half hour, just sort of swam around and let us take those pictures. Then we have Sleepy. This is the male loon on Loon Cam 1. And it's the same loon year after year after year, so we're sort of getting to know them a little bit. And this guy just likes to sleep. Daytime, nighttime, doesn't matter. If it's his shift, sit on those eggs, don't worry about it, just go to sleep. And so we can always, it's hard to tell the male from the female if you're not looking at the bands. But in this particular case, when the Sleepy got on the nest, we knew it was the male. We see a lot of other creatures around. This is a wood duck, really cool little duck that has a sort of teardropped eye and sort of swims like an Egyptian dancer, bobs its head back and forth. So it's sort of fun to watch. We also see the blue herons. Both Loon Cam 1 and 2 both have herons hanging around. This was one we got a couple years ago where the heron sat on the nest for quite some time. Sometimes the loons puts up with this stuff and sometimes they don't. This year, we had the bird swoop in and the loon got really upset about it. So I guess, some days it happens, some days it doesn't. We end up with a lot of turtles. These are the painted turtles. And we have a couple spots on Loon Cam 1 area called Turtle Rock or Turtle Island. This year, that was buried in the water, so the turtles decided to take over the loon nest. And this was in the early days before the loons had decided to really stay there. Once the loon shows up, the turtles just scatter. We'll get into a few of the threats that we see. This one is a rash that the loon got on the back of its neck due to bugs. New Hampshire has bugs. It's one of our seasons, and the loons can be quite bothered by them. This year was not really that bad a year, but it's the first time that I've seen the rash show up on the back of the loon's neck. It went away in about a day or two. Unfortunately, a couple years before, the loon got completely engulfed in bugs. This is a picture of that. It may be a little hard to look at, but it was it ended up going off the nest just to get the bugs off of itself. And that particular year, those eggs didn't hatch because it had to stay off the eggs so long that the eggs became inviable, even though they ended up incubating it the whole 28 days. It just never hatched. We typically have a territorial fight or two. So a rogue loon shows up and the other two loons go out and have a conversation with it. And, sometimes it's quick and sometimes it's very peaceful. Sometimes it can get a little nasty. Sometimes it can last a long time. So, but we've never seen an intruder take over the nest. It does happen, but it hasn't happened for our loon camps. We have some tragedies. This was one that happened, I believe it was last year. We woke up one morning after a thunderstorm and the egg had been crushed. The loon literally sat on and crushed the egg, so it wasn't a predator or anything else. It just perhaps was an egg that was inviable due to some, whatever. But anyway, it obviously didn't hatch. The other one did hatch, so we were okay there. And then we have the giant-sized turtles. This is a turtle that is probably, I don't know, as old as the loon at least, which is about 30 years old. And every year on Loon Cam 1, we see this turtle. he comes up on the nest when the loon, before the loon has laid the egg, and then sometimes after the egg has showed up, the loon comes around as well. So here was an example this year of the loon, having a different opinion about whether that turtle should be there or not. And there's a movie of this in our library where the loon, after it does this, jumps off the nest and sort of runs at the turtle 3 or 4 times and really makes sure that turtle knows that he's not welcome now. This is called flushing the nest. So the loon takes sort of a unexpected leave of the nest, and this can be because somebody gets too close with a kayak, or perhaps another predator has shown up or whatever. But the danger in a flush is that they may kick off the eggs off the nest, and so we haven't seen that happen again, but it's something that has happened in other nests. And it's an important reason not to, scare a loon to the point of flushing. And then there's eagles. Now this is I love this picture because this was taken on May 9th of this year. So the loons have already nested. I'm going to bring up my little annotation device if I can figure this out here. Spotlight, okay. So over here, we have the loon nest on the left side, and the loon sitting on it. And I believe, I'm not sure the eggs are already there or not. I'm not sure. But the other thing to notice is this, alder bushes that are stuck into the nest area. If you've read the latest newsletter from the LPC, they have an article in there about this. John, it starts off last year, the chick got taken by an eagle within hours of being hatched. So we were like, this isn't going to happen again. So John found out that in Washington State, where they have lots of eagles and very few loons, they use these alder bushes to protect the nest from the eagle coming down. And so, again, here we have the eagle showed up over here and flew around and got the loons all sorts of upset. But the fact that it was a snowy day, I don't think I've ever seen a snowy day in May when the loon cam was operating. So it was a very sort of unique situation. There's also a movie of this. So if you go into our library and look for, I think it's a snowy day, loon eagle or something. Anyway, look for May 9th. It's then. The year that the eagle took the chick, it also went after the egg about 3 days before it took the chick. And this is just an example of, I was shocked because normally this picture would show the loon completely, and the loon's a pretty big bird. While the eagle swoops in, it just completely overwhelms the picture. You can see the egg right below the eagle's nest or the eagle's beak. And the eagle did move the egg and almost put it into the water, but was unable to break it or to push it in the water. And so the loon, once he fought off the eagle, brought the egg back into the middle. And then unfortunately, 3 days later, the eagle got the chick. This is a picture of that event where the loon is quite upset and yelling at the eagle, but the eagle wins that battle. So we've incubated, we've gotten through many of the hazards. It's time to hatch, and the first indication of a hatch is called a pip. And the chat room goes crazy about sort of a badge of honor who gets the first pip, who finds it. And we're wrong quite often. I've been wrong. Some of our regulars have been wrong because we're all trying to, anything we can see. Sometimes it's a feather, sometimes it's a shadow, sometimes it's just a piece of dirt. But in this case, where that red circle is, that is indeed a pip of an egg. And that's the first time we had seen it that particular session. Here's another. This is a very zoomed in picture because that's just the way the frame was, where you can see a very good indication of a pip, where the larger end of the egg is starting to break open and the chick's about to come out. And here's another good one. Again, it's very zoomed in, so it's a bit fuzzy. But if you look at the movie on this one, you can literally see the beak starting to come out through that little hole that's being made there. So this is always fun. Now you only get to see it when the loon is getting up to turn the egg. So sometimes it's like 10, 15 seconds is all you have. And so we'll go back, use the replay function, and go frame by frame, and there's, oh yeah, there's that pip. And then we definitely talk about that in the chat room. Here's well, there's two examples here. One is, this is the first view of the only chick that we got out of Loon Cam 2 this year. It shows a sort of a foible of the camera, and that it loves to focus on the water behind the nest, and that's what it did at this particular moment. But we were like waiting to see the chick. We knew it was hatching. It had been hatching for a while. And the other mate came, and the two adults changed turns of watching. And so that was our first example. Was there was the chick in all its glory. You can also see the other egg there. That particular egg did not hatch this year. And now we'll have some chick pictures. These are just all fun and games. They just grow up so fast. They are in the water within hours of the time we first see them. The adults are very protective of them, especially in some of these areas where there's bass hanging around or there may be eagles hanging around. And so they're very protective of their chicks. This is another Loon Cam 2 chick. He just found this perch on the edge of the artificial nest, and just would sit there for forever, and then get bored with that and jump in the water, and then the mother would come in and pick him up, or not pick him up, but encourage him to go back into the nest, because that is sort of a dangerous area for a loon chick to be swimming alone. Here's another one. This is a chick from 2 years ago. You can see a little bit of a white spot in the middle of his head. We called this guy a Dent, because he was involved in a sibling rivalry with his other egg, and he ended up not surviving. He survived for about 5 days, but then he just disappeared. But unfortunately, we did get to enjoy him for a day or two, but he was one we lost. I like this picture because it shows the mother constantly, or I'm not sure it's the mother, but the adult constantly lifting those wings up. And it's just so interesting to see how thick those wings are. And, it's trying to encourage the chick to go back under the wing, but the chick is like, I don't really want to. I like it out here. And so there's this like conversation going on between the two. And again, I'm anthropomorphizing, but I do. We get pictures of the first fish being fed. We get pictures of the, getting on the back. We get, let's see, this picture. Oh yeah, can you see the little chick in this one? It's a little hard to see. This is another one of those first views. Let me grab my spotlight here, and right here is the chick, just peeking out in the back of the loon. Now this was taken just shortly after that, but what I thought cool about this is the loon making one of its calls. I don't know which one it was, but just the way that head sort of elongates and changes its shape and the way it stretches its neck, and then you hear that call coming out. We all love the loon calls. Well, to see them actually doing it, and to see the way that they create the bellows that make it happen. I just always like that. There's two chicks, one's on the back and one's in front. Here's just another chick on the back. And again, some of the pictures that have been shown in this Thursday night series, have been phenomenal because people are using phenomenal cameras and they wait for hours to get that perfect picture. We're cheating a bit. We've taken 20 pictures a second, so we can always find that perfect shot. But our camera is only a mere fraction of the quality of some of these professional cameras. That's a video camera. It's not a still camera, so the quality is not as good. Now here's a couple of the chicks that are still fighting, and this was a rivalry that ended up being okay because after a short period of time they sort of developed their pecking order, so to speak, and stopped fighting, and they became good friends. There's a little chick sleeping on the back of the mother. There's another one. That one must have had a lot of light because that came out pretty good. Here's another little chick picture. Here the mother's, the adult is apparently feel things are safe enough that it can preen a little bit while the two chicks are just hanging around. This is what we got a couple years ago, just sort of popped its head up like, hey, anybody home? Another one through the weeds. And then, they're only around so long. The first one hatches, and if there's going to be a second one, you wait for that second egg to hatch. And if both chicks are healthy, and typically by the end of that day, they're gone. And if one chick is unhealthy, they may go out and come back and spend another night on the nest. But they go so quickly, and when they do go, the normal approach is this scene where the two parents are on either side of the two chicks, and they're swimming off into the sunset. And it's sad because that we've been following them for 6 weeks, but on the other hand, it's the end of the cycle, and it's time to start another one. Here's just another pair, another nest, but it's a very similar kind of picture. We did have a unique situation this year in Loon Cam 1 where there was an intruder in the neighborhood, and so each adult took its one chick off to fight the intruder. And so at the end of the day, the last leaving of the adult and chick was just one adult and one chick because the other one was already in the brooding ground. So that was a little unusual, but one of the things that we have come to understand is that when it comes to the book of how things should be done, loons haven't really read it, and so they'll sometimes make up their own rules. A tradition that we have, not every time, but a lot of times, is to let the biologist of the lake that we're on come in and do a little video epilogue where they're finding lost eggs or picking up eggshells and just examining the nest to see if it's if there's anything unique about it, because those eggshells and so forth are brought back to LPC and are cataloged as part of the research of the 100 or so nests that are in New Hampshire every year. Now, a little bit about the Loon Cam itself. Does anybody see where the microphone is? This is the microphone right here. It's camouflaged, and this microphones are always it's been the bane of my existence of coming to Loon Camps. I've had so many fail on me. This year, I think we finally got, well, at least we were better. And in this case, we have the microphone right beside the loon nest, and you can hear the pecks as the little chick's trying to get out of the egg. You can hear the peeps when the loon gets up on the nest. You hear the crunches and so forth. So it's the closer that we can get that microphone, the better we are. So this was Loon Cam 1 this year. James did it, and then I gotta exit my little pointer. And then Alyssa did Loon Cam 2, bigger boat, but and she reached way down into the nest to grab that egg. I told her, if you fall in, camera's going to keep rolling. She did not fall in, but I think she was pretty close. Okay, so that's sort of the end of that reproductive cycle. Starting off from picking a nest and ending up with leaving the area. Now we're going to get into the third part of the presentation, which is how does it work? Yeah, if you have questions at the end of this, I'm happy to answer them. I'm going to go pretty much through every, maybe too much detail, but everything that we have learned, at least the components and how we use them. So the basic design is there's a pan, tilt, zoom camera, and it's connected to YouTube Live. And then we have an internet connection. The internet connection that we get is 35 megabits per second upload capacity, which is faster than most home networks. It's a business grade line. And we have a video archive that a separate stream from YouTube that keeps the video stream for up to 7 days. So we can always go back and make a movie of something if something weird happens. We also take a time-lapse snapshot, which is once a minute or once every 5 minutes, depending on how much is going on. And that just, it's gigabytes of data that we can use for research or whatever else we may want to do. So we have at least a shot of every minute or so. We have a remote power switch, which helps me reboot things if I need to, and then a weather station to know what the temperature is. With LoonCam 2, we have started doing a off-grid approach, which was an engineering challenge, but I think we're our third year. I think we've got it sort of figured out. We have 2 batteries, solar panels, an AC/DC converter, and then a radio link to the mainland. And so we're running the camera completely off and the radio completely on battery and solar panel power, and then the mainland connects to the internet like it does with the basic design. This is a picture of John Cooley planting the LoonCam post. The camera gets attached to the post once it's in. And as with Alyssa, I thought I might have some great footage of her falling in. I'm every year I'm sure that I'm going to get John falling in the water, but John has never fallen in the water that I've seen. And I mean, this guy gets wet every day, but he rocks that boat. 1 foot on the post, 1 foot on the boat, and it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch. But John gets that post crammed in as far as he can into the mud, and then those other posts are put there as braces. And that's how we get close to the nest. Here's a picture of the camera and the nest and the microphone. This was from several years ago, and you can see it's about 30 feet. We try to have a good angle. Some of our challenges are that we put it in May when there's no greenery around, and by the time June shows up when the egg's hatching, the grasses have grown, and so we need to pick a spot that is going to be a good angle, the whole time, especially, getting the money shots when the chick comes out, and we want to be able to get that. So we have to be very careful about that. This must be an older picture because we have gone to a much lower angle now. The director of LPC, Harry Vogel, said, "Hey, I want to see that loon at eye level, at loon eye level." So we have been lowering that camera as much as we dare. Sometimes the water comes up, we don't want to get the camera wet, so we do that. All right, so this is probably the worst slide of the whole batch, but it's the webcam design, and just try to give you an idea of what's going on. So there's, you, the viewers, are looking at YouTube, but we're also sending streams to the archive and the LoonCam operator. I'm watching the video from the camera, and we have that snapshot file server. The blue box on the left is the equipment. So that has the router and the weather hub and the power switch in it. And that's, and then the cables come out from there. We run an Ethernet cable to the camera. We run the infrared floodlight. That's either another Ethernet cable or a regular plug, depending if the light is in the water or on land. And then we have a weather station that we put aside. The camera has an underwater mic cable that runs from the cable to the microphone, and then there's the mic itself. So the camera is, and now I'm going to be giving you all the brands that I'm using, and again, some of this selection's 5 years old, so they may be better these days, but we're using an Axis 5635E Mark II camera, which is, it can pan 360. So the thing can just spin around all day long, and it can tilt 180. So it can go from, this way to that way. It has a 30x optical zoom, which is really nice. And then we can do digital zoom up to 240, but it practically after about 60, it starts getting really fuzzy. The camera has audio. It's tough to find a camera that has audio. It also has the 1080p, which is the full HD. It's not 4K HD, but it's the the typical full high definition. We have the real-time control, which is the screen on the right is the screen that I use as I go through it. And I can run that on my laptop or my mobile. It's not as user-friendly on the mobile, but if I'm traveling about and something's happened, and I can get into the camera and operate from there. And you can see basically I can change the image, I can change the contrast, the brightness, I can change things about the stream quality, I can change the volume on the camera, I can make preset scenes, so I can zoom right into the eggs and so forth. So it took a while to learn the camera, but it's not super complicated. I do just 1 minute. I have the camera here. This is Loon Cam 2's camera. Actually, this is Loon Cam's 2, because Loon Cam 1 is now running as Loon Cam 3. But this is the camera, so it's it's fairly large. And there's on top of it, this is the infrared light. So this thing lights up the scene at night. And then at the bottom, if you can see this here, at the bottom we have an Ethernet connector, and then that little gold thing is where we screw the audio in. So this is what I give John. John puts the post in the water, and then I come to John and I say, here, you nail this on. So Kelly said I get myself muddy a lot. I try to let John be the one that gets muddy. The infrared light is a spotlight that it goes at infrared frequencies, and it operates during the night, and it lets us have really very good visibility of what's going on overnight. I can control that either with the remote control power switch or with a timer, so that it can automatically turn it on and off. The camera itself has an infrared filter, so as it starts getting dusk, we don't need the infrared light so much because the camera can still get a really good picture at dusk, but then once it gets really dark, we turn on the infrared light. This is something that I found a few years ago that I love this thing. This is a internet power switch. And you can see there at the bottom, it has 2 plugs in it, and it connects into my internet at the Loon Cam site. And I can turn it on or off, either the first or the second plug, or I can schedule things to turn on and off automatically. And so, like if my camera gets locked up, and this camera doesn't get locked up much, but it's happened a few times, I can just toggle the power on. Power reset solves at least 60% of IT problems. And so, I can power it off from my living room, which is great. I don't have to drive up there. First year I had to drive up there a couple of times, and I said, I got to fix that thing. And then at the bottom, I can either turn things on or off with the status control, and then the schedule, like this case, I would turn on the infrared lights at 9 o'clock at night and turn them back off again at 4:50 in the morning. And so that was, it's just a really nice device. This is my router, and it's not just your basic router. It's one that, it does the port forwarding, letting me access all the equipment behind the firewall, but it also has a bandwidth meter as part of the firewall. And so bandwidth becomes a very precious commodity when you're running this camera. Now, I could use 50 megabits per second. I'm buying 35 because that's all I can get. And I'm sometimes not even getting what I'm buying. And so this is telling me what's happening on the camera itself, or on the circuit itself. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but for those that want to ask questions or contact me later, or doing this yourself, you have to put together a bandwidth budget. So I've got YouTube and Angel Cam, which is my archive, my Loon Cam operator, my still life, and I'm only getting 35. Well, I bought 35, and I'm getting anywhere from 5 to 42, depending on how kind my cable company is that day. The camera's limit is 50, so I don't need more than that. And the way the camera works is it compresses things by looking at two frames side by side and say, well, what's changed? And if not a lot has changed, it only sends the stuff that has changed. And so, for instance, at dusk or at night, or if I'm zoomed way out, I might be able to send a great signal at 1 megabit or 2 megabits per second. But if it's a windy day and I've got whitecaps all in the water and I'm zoomed out to the point that I'm looking at all the whitecaps and then there's loons and everything's moving around, I might be up around 20, 25 megabits per second. And so I can't have multiple streams going at that speed. So I got to start throttling back some of the streams. Well, normally what we do is we run the YouTube stream as high quality as we can get away with, because that's what everybody's watching. And then the archive, if we do have bandwidth problems, we'll back off the archive to 720p rather than 1080p, and maybe do fewer frames and compress it more, just so that we can fit all those different streams into the bandwidth that's available. I get a little more weeds, and I promise I'll come back up again. We're buying this circuit that's supposedly 600 down, 35 up, but when you start hitting the capacity, you start getting packet loss. So you're sending a packet, but it doesn't get to the other end. And so now the camera says, I'm going too fast, so I better slow down. And so what you see on these charts, we were having a real problem. And I used this to prove it to the Spectrum, which was our cable company, that if I try to inject it with 25 megabits per second or 35 megabits per second, which is what I bought, or even 10 megabits per second, the camera is just jumping up and down as far as its frequency. And you as viewers are seeing this as either the sound stops, burps a bit, or the camera or the picture freezes for a second and then starts up again. And I mean, I don't know, I see it, I'm very annoyed by it. And so it's my goal to not have any of that. And you can see in this particular example, we only have, was it 5.5 megabits per second. When I throttle the camera back to that level, everything's nice and smooth. And so I gave this to the cable company. I said, hey, I'm buying 35. You're giving me 5.5. Let's do better. And they did. And I cannot say better things about Spectrum at the end of the day, because they got their regional manager involved. They even got some techie people out in St. Louis involved, and they did fix my circuit. There was a lot of problems with it, and they ended up, that neighborhood now has much better internet than they did before we showed up. But in the future, I think what we're going to try next year, and it's a little more expensive, but I think worth it, is we're going to buy 2 data circuits, and there'll be 1 data circuit for YouTube and 1 data circuit for the archive. And that way I'll have a theoretical capacity of 70 when I only need 50. And that should alleviate the problem. Okay, so then the solar, and this is, I'm sorry about this slide. This is a bit of a mess too, but on the upper left, we got the solar panels. We set up at 21 degrees because we're in June, the highest point of the sun during the year. So we use a solar calculator to figure out how can we get the most sun. We didn't want to go to that third panel because it's a pain to set up, and it just costs more than everything else. We have a lot of meters that show us how much energy we're using and how much energy we're producing. And then on the right side, you see the antenna that we're using, just tied to a tree, and then that blasts the signal across the lake to the shoreline, where we can hook it up to the internet. So we've really split our system into two. The radio, and I'm a network engineer when I was working during the day. And so I really have a lot of appreciation for this bridge. It's Ubiquity, which is a sort of a commercial grade of equipment called Lightbeam. This device supposedly can send up to 400 megabits per second or 3 miles. Now, not both at the same time, but that's a pretty good radio. It has real-time monitoring, so I can tell exactly what's going on. It has automatic optimization, so you just sort of point them and aim them at each other, and it just figures the rest out. And I've used them 2 years now. Even when it's raining, I may see a bit of degradation in the capacity. But like in this particular example, this was before I aligned them. So it was telling me I had a capacity of 81 megabits per second. At this particular moment, I was sending a total of 10. And again, my total would never been more than 35. So I've got 81. I could do 10. When I aligned these later on in the season, I was up to about 150 megabits per second capacity over a quarter mile, and so it's just way over engineered. I like that because there's so many other things that can go wrong. Let's keep this one working. So I did. This is partly show and tell. So this is the size of it, just to give you an example. Here's my head, and it's a pretty big antenna, but they were cheap. Each one of these is 65 bucks. You have to buy two. So, for 130 bucks, you've got yourself a radio link that can't be beat. Oh, while I'm at it, this is the another show and tell. This is the microphone that we used. Now, the microphone is actually this. It's just a little microphone and some cables. But for those of you who watched Loon Cam 2 this year, we ended up very noisy because we put this in the nest itself, just like this. And it ended up not only hearing too much wind noise, but also we got it wet and it stopped, it started humming. And so we put this little piece of PVC pipe, got some foam, shoved the foam in there for wind protection, shoved this in there, taped it up really good. And the sound was great. We were literally in the nest. It was an artificial nest, and we were tie wrapped right to the wires at the roof. And we'll do that again because the sound was just amazing. Okay, so the solar parts, and it seems simple. I don't know. It took me a long time to figure this out, but we end up just using 200-watt panels. We have pole mounts. We have a charge controller, which takes the current or the power from the solar panels and puts it into the battery when it's needed. A whole bunch of cables and junctions and fuses and so forth. We ended up buying some commercial grade batteries because, and we bought two 6-volt batteries. And the reason for that is that we needed a lot of capacity for when it gets cloudy. And even as, so these are 6-volt, 200 amp. Each one weighs 64 pounds. So if that was a 12-volt battery, if we only wanted to go with one battery, we would have been dealing with a 130-pound battery. And, no. so we use two. And then we have a inverter, which converts the DC into AC. We run a line, a extension cord about 300 yards through the woods to the other side of this island where our camera is. And because we're only using about 30 watts or so, we can get away with that long an extension cord. If you were running a lot of power, you'd lose a lot of voltage that long. And then we have a box. So we have a box for electronics on at the solar panel. We have a box at the camera. And then we have another box of electronics over at the island. Another sort of calculation that we had to look at was how much solar panel power do we need? And the batteries have about 1,250 watt-hour capacity. That takes them down to 50%. You don't want to go below 50%. The solar generates between 150 and 1,000 watt-hours a day. It's almost like a kilowatt a day if it's a really sunny day. But on a cloudy day, we're lucky if we get 150. And our camera with the infrared lights at night use about 750 watt-hours a day. So if you do all these calculations, we've got plenty of energy as long as the clouds don't come up, but they do. And we designed for 3 days of clouds, but this year in Loon Cam 2, I woke up one morning and the camera was dead. We had lost the power. We were out of power. The inverter shuts down when it gets to a certain level. And so as soon as the sun came up, it started making power and the camera came back again. So I didn't have to go there but we did end up removing those batteries and recharging them on an AC charger, and then reinstalling them, and they were good for the rest of the season. This is a piece of software called Cam Streamer that is software that runs inside the camera, and it connects us to YouTube or Facebook or many other different things. So the Axis camera itself cannot connect to YouTube native out of the box. So this is about a $200 piece of software that you have to buy per camera to make it work on YouTube. So, you know, $200 we had to spend it, we did. Works great too. We have our video library. I really encourage you, if you want to see some of the cool videos we've made over the year, just go peruse those. It's sourced from the 7-Day Archive. It's created, I use the Movavi video editor and upload it to YouTube. And when I do that, the subscribers are alerted. But we make most of our movies, you know, these days when there's some big event happening. So like if the PIP has happened and we're expecting the hatch, we'll send out a video about that, and all the subscribers know to, you know, it's time to tune in. We also get YouTube stream reports. Now, again, we are not down to the individual level, so we don't know what you have done, but we can tell that, for instance, the viewers typically are watching Sunday morning. Friday, you know, less watching than the rest of the week. So, you know, people have their habits, but at least we get to have a sort of an understanding if we're going to do some maintenance or so forth. When's the best time when the least few people will be watching? We also can see how many viewers are watching over the last 48 hours. And the lower right is showing the chat rate, you know, how many chats are happening per minute. And you can see we get up to about 8 chats, and there's periods of nobody chatting at all, which is okay. We also can see from this that this particular day, we had 7,500 playbacks. That's 7,500 people watched the video. And the average time they watched it was 17 minutes. So that's pretty good. That's actually going up over the years. We can also tell where people have come from. So 65% have come from the United States, Canada's next, UK, Poland, Germany, and it goes down from there. But we typically have over 100 different countries stop by. This particular year, female over male, 60-40 or so. We've seen other years where it's pretty much 50-50, but you know, just interesting information. We also see that almost half the people that are watching are over 65, and you know, it goes down by age that way. I know I watch an awful lot. I'm over 65, so I'm probably part of the probably biasing that number into the high end. This is the weather station. We use that not a lot anymore, but at least it lets us know how hot is it. Caroline did a study a couple years ago of when loons were panting, and so we were able to say, oh, you know, here's the temperature, and here's when they start panting. And so it's a way of knowing, you know, how hot it was or how windy it was, and so forth. This is just a control screen of our video archive, where I can go in there and pick a particular period of time, up to 3-hour clip, and just say, I want you to give me that clip, and then it creates those clips, puts them in an archive library, and then I can download and load them, or I can even share them so somebody can watch just the archive. We've had a couple cases where, you know, one of the regulars said, oh, I want to see that particular event, and it's like, oh, I'm not going to make a movie of that, but here I'll at least grab it from the archive, put it in the library, and then here's a link to it. So if you're watching our YouTube in the future and you want to see something, it's pretty easy to put that in the archive. We also make these time-lapse shots. So we have literally thousands of files that are time-stamped by the timestamp. The file name is the timestamp, so we can always find out when things are happening. I've used these a lot to very quickly scroll through time to say, well, you know, when did the loon last change its nest, or when did the last egg turn happen? And so, you know, yes, you can do it through YouTube as well, but this is a really easy way of doing it. I can make time-lapse movies. There has been talk, I haven't seen any action yet, but there's been talk of using some artificial intelligence with some video recognition to just run these through the process and figure out how much time was the male in the nest versus the female in the nest given different times during the incubation period, or how many times do they change over, how many times do they turn the eggs, and so forth, how much time do they spend off the eggs. And so, it would be too time consuming. There's literally gigabytes of data at the end of each nesting season. But if folks can come up with an artificial intelligence algorithm, I'd love to see that. It'd be cool. All right, so winding down here, lessons learned. This is my lessons learned over the years, and perhaps if any of you are going to be an LCO in the future. We really try to minimize the human sound and on-camera moments. Try to keep people off the picture and not have sound. I mean, those of you who watch know that a lot of times on Friday and Saturday night, I just turn off the mic because it's just impossible. There'll be parties in the neighborhood, and we just turn it off. Sometimes we catch things we probably shouldn't, but we keep the microphone very low, keep it close to the nest, and we really are trying to only get loon sounds and crickets and frogs. Focus on the loon. I don't know how many times I have oh, this is interesting over here, and then let's go look at the sunset, and then I come back and the loon is off the nest. And I go, how did it get off the nest? And it just it seems to know. So just word to myself is keep focused on the loons. We have to keep the chat on topic. It can get boring after 28 days. If the egg's not hatching, if the nest isn't being made, and so forth. And we've seen chat deteriorate, and so it's one of my roles to try to keep things in line, on topic and so forth. And I'm not a real, I don't like to ban people or delete posts and so forth. So we've gone with a method that we only let people post once every 30 seconds. It's called slow mode. And a lot of people hate it, but at the end of the day, when we turn slow mode off, it gets out of control. When we turn slow mode on, it stays in control. So we stick with it. I also, the regulars, most of you that are regulars know I do have your email, and I prefer to give you a word off back channel rather than saying it online. So we do try to keep it under control. I think this year worked fine. I don't think we had any real big complaints about people. Quality and reliability can always be better. I mean, you see some of the pictures that I've got, the camera's always focusing in the wrong place. And so we're looking for better cameras. We're looking for ways of making it more reliable. And so that is a winter project, it'll never end. A lot of times we learn because of failures. Little trick this year I learned was the cable company changed my IP address. And so I couldn't control the camera. I couldn't get to the camera. The camera still worked because it was broadcasting out to YouTube, but I couldn't talk to the camera because I didn't know its IP address anymore. But the time-lapse files that go to my file server show up in a log that shows you what IP address the files came from. So I was able to go into the log, find the IP address, and find the new, be able to find the camera again and gain control again over it. So there's so many of those little details that you learn over time that I can never write them all down, but I just thought that was a tricky one. Another little trick is that the camera has something called sharpness. And if I'm really running out of bandwidth and it's really glitchy and the sound's popping and so forth, I reduce the sharpness. Can't tell that much, and it does reduce the bandwidth. And I mean, again, I'll get back to my privilege of being Loon Cam operator is I get to watch the loons, and they are amazing. And I think over the 5 years that I've done this and put in how many hours on it, it's just to be able to decide myself what I'm going to look at with that loon and what's interesting and so forth. It's been a privilege to do that, and I will do it as long as I can, and hopefully we will get backup Loon Cam operators in the future. And anybody who wants to learn this next year, I'm happy to have help. This is a picture of loon hatch day operation. Now, normally I just sit on my couch with my laptop in my lap and I'm doing things, but this was last year. We had 2 Loon Cams running at once, Loon Cam 1, Loon Cam 2. We had the chat going. And I had a video I was looking at for one reason or another. I was looking at video, but I had 4 different screens going and a piece of paper to mark down my notes to myself, and of course that ever important cup of coffee. This setup was designed to work for days. Unfortunately, this was the year that the eagle came in and grabbed our chick within hours, and so it didn't get a lot of use. But I did take a picture, and I thought it was at least informative of how we approach these things. And I'll end with a picture of the Loon Cam 2 from this year. Now, while Kelly, I'm going to stop, or I'm going to share something different here. I'm going to go back to the camera itself. So this is Loon Cam 3. I can't tell if the loon's on the nest or not. I don't think it is. But one of the things that I can do here is go to the image and turn off the infrared filter so we can get black and white. We'll see if we'll do better that way. So the loon's off the nest right now, which is loon's been, again, this could be, the hatch could be in the next couple of days, or if it's not going to hatch, it could be known in the next couple of days. So normally what I would do, if I don't see, this is the YouTube version of that. And I can just like jump back a while and see, when did that loon, okay, so loon was there at that point. Loon was there at that point. You just keep like tapping it forward and find out where did that loon disappear. I think because I have 2 Zooms running and all sorts of things, I might be limiting bandwidth myself. You can see the camera's saying it's burning at 2 megabits per second at this point, which isn't too bad. Oh, there it's gone. Kelly, if you want to chime in, do you have any questions showing up at this point?
We do indeed. Had a couple that came in a little bit ago, but they were kind of in amongst, stuff that could definitely go with, just kind of toward the end. Someone was wondering if we had any updates on Loon Cam 1 and 2, which realistically, I should probably be the one that could give those, but I don't.
Well, I haven't heard any bad news. Let's start out that way. Loon Cam 2 or Loon Cam 1, we've had numerous reports from James and from people that live in the area that the chicks are fine, they're being fed, and so there's no reason to think that they're gone. They're probably, they're in that 12-week period. They're probably going to be okay. Loon Cam 2, haven't heard anything. I don't know. I don't know. I know that particular area has three different sets of pairs of loons, and there was 5 total chicks. And so I know there was some intruder activity in that area. So that's something that we'll have to ask Caroline to put into the next LPC newsletter. And for those of you that don't subscribe to that, it's a good way of getting updated. It's a free newsletter. You just go into the loon.org site and sign up for it by email. And Caroline puts that out every couple of weeks or so. And in the winter, less so often, but it at least keeps you up with what's going on in Loonland. So,
all right. I think we might have just answered one of these just because of what you just did to change stuff on Cam 3, but I've actually got 3 questions for Cam 3. One is, does it have IR? One is it live? And the other is, when is hatch expected? Well,
so this is an example where we do not have infrared lights. So we don't have the floodlights, but we do have the infrared lens. And as you can see, If I have the lens off, I can see pretty well. If I turn it back on again, there's still some light in the area. I mean, let me back off the whole way. And I mean, you can see how far we are. Oh, there's a nice spot. That looks a lot better than the sky I'm looking at my window. But we're really, really far away from that nest. And the more you zoom in, the more light you need to make a good picture. And so, no, if this nest, this is the first time this nest has been on this pond in 25 years plus. And so if this becomes a regular event, there's a good chance we could go put another solar cam on the island out there near the nest and then beam it back to the mainland. It is live. I'm looking at this. I don't have a timestamp on it. This is not an official LPC Loon cam. This is more of a neighborhood Loon cam. I know the people in the neighborhood. And I said, I'll just pop it up for you because I hadn't put the Loon cam away. And so we're getting maybe 20 views a day. It is on YouTube, but it's hard to find. And it's not well controlled. There's no sound. There's no infrared lights. There's no super high clear picture. We're really just trying to understand, is the loon still there, and when does the chick happen? We don't know when the nest actually started. All of a sudden it was there and somebody was kayaking and said, hey, there's a nest there. And so we sort of said, okay, it was probably, let's say it's at the end of the first week. And so that would put about August 1st as the potential hatch date, but I suppose that could go out to August 5th or 6th. We don't know if there's 1 or 2 eggs there. I believe there's 1 egg, but those of you that are know me from the loon cams, I am frequently wrong and don't even pretend to be right all the time. But yeah, I think there's 1 egg, and some people think there's 2.
All right. Again, this is probably one that would be probably better for Caroline. But as Loon Preservation Committee, I should be the one that's answering this one, but I don't know. So I'm going to throw this one to you. Someone was wondering if there were any research topics that the Loon camera has actually directly contributed to, or are there any ideas or whatever that has been kind of floated around as what it could be used for?
Well, I think the artificial intelligence is one that really captures my attention, because I think that AI and video recognition is becoming pretty good, and so to me it's a research topic that somebody could take on. It's probably a master's or doctor's thesis out there waiting to happen. We've probably proven a few things wrong. I know if you go to the Loon Center and watch the video, I don't know, is it still the same video? Like, wait a minute, we know that's not right because we watch it. The thing that the loons leave the nest and never come back. We've seen them leave the nest and come back that evening, or because the little chicks weren't quite ready yet. And so we've seen 2 chicks spend 2 nights in the nest, which we didn't think happened. I think the common wisdom is that the male takes most of the nesting duties the first week while the female recovers from laying the eggs, and then it's pretty much even, and then the female takes over at the end. Loon Cam 1, it's typically the male that's been there during the hatch. So we've seen them be off the nest for 5-6 hours, which common wisdom says, well, that's an inviable egg now, and yet the egg hatches. So we're providing anecdotal information that goes against common wisdom, but it's not a scientific study at this point. It's just anecdotal information. So I think that, I guess the way I look at it is we make as many videos as possible. We have, if somebody wants to look at, an egg being laid, we've got great shots of that. So I'm hoping that people that are researching loons are looking at those things. I think the time lapse are not being used as well as they could be, but maybe at some point, sometime in the future, there'll be enterprising college student that says, hey, I got the data, let me make a project out of it. So I mean, I think the answer is probably not as much as it could be.
All righty. And the last question I think I have, unless someone else has popped anything in the chat in the last minute or two, is what is the Loon Cam tech wish list?
Well, I'd like I guess the biggest one, I would like an apprentice because, you know, I mean, I typically watch the Loon Cam in the morning and night, you know, when I'm drinking coffee or watching TV or whatever. But I think having somebody as backup would be useful. I think that what we're talking about next year is putting another solar panel in and maybe 4 batteries so that we have more power because we did run out this year. So that was a good indication that we hadn't done our design well enough. The camera itself is not supported anymore. It's supported, but it's not being made. It's an obsolete camera. The newer cameras have a faster processor in them, and they can compress the data better. So I can get more data through, you know, better picture for less data, which is always the goal. You know, the new cameras are about $2,000, and these would probably sell on the used market for 500, even though we did spend about 1,500 for them each on when we bought a new. So, you know, that's a little bit outside of the budget. I think what we'll do is probably live with these cameras a couple more years. I would like to see a 4K camera at some point that had sound. I can't find one at this, you know, I've been looking around because I think if we went to 4K, we would be able to do 1080p at a very efficient rate, you know, if you're not pushing the camera to its limits. I'd also like to see a little bit better zoom lens because in both Loon Cam 1 and 2, a lot of the Loon activity is taking place pretty far away. And just like in this case, you know, I zoom in, I'm at 60 zoom when I go into the, you know, the normal picture, but 60 zoom is all my 30x optical and then again on digital. Well, looks like Loon's back. He's turning the egg. All right, we get to see something here. But I'll turn to black and white again because it'll be better. There we go. There we go. How about that? That looks pretty good. Now he's sitting down. So anyway, I'd like to have a camera that even at that far distance, I'd be able to really, you know, count the feathers like we can do, or, you know, count the spots on the eggs like we do with the you know, the cameras that when they're 30 feet away. Bandwidth, I think I'm going to try the load balancing with you know, 2 circuits, and my router in theory can do it, but I've never done it before, so that's going to be a bit of a technical challenge next year. And I think making it easier to install, especially with the solar panel stuff, that takes us about 8 hours from the time we have to put the solar panel you know, mounts together and then mount the camera and set up the antennas on both ends and align them and so forth. It's about 8 hours of work. And you know, it's in the middle of busy season for LPC, and you know, I'm trying to not get muddy or wet, so we do like to have the and plus, you know, it's because sometimes the loons are in the area, and I'm not a biologist, so a biologist from LPC is always there to set the camera and to, you know, basically make it approved by LPC, so to speak.
Do we know when Loon Cam 2 finally moved off to the brooding area? So I know they were in the nesting area for a little while longer than we
I think
thought.
it was like because when I went up to get the camera, they were still there, and I mean, that was when we did Alicia did the broadcast from there. They were there that day, and then I went up, I guess, the next day to pick up some more of the equipment. They were still there, but then I think the day after that, I know somebody that lives up in that area, and then the day after that, I think they were gone. So it took them, you know, 3 or 4 days extra. They never came back to the nest again, but they were in that general vicinity for about 3 or 4 days.
And I suppose the most important question is, does your intern have to be in New Hampshire? I think you might have a volunteer, potentially.
For operating the camera, probably not. We can probably work that out. But it's yeah. I'm definitely willing to train somebody, because it's I mean, literally it's hundreds of hours that each year that I put in, and I do love doing it. But when that last session gets turned down, it's been since from May to the middle of July. It's time. But by next April, May, we'll be all ready to do it all over again.
That's usually how it works, yeah.
Now it's time to get ready for snowmobile season.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we have any other questions. No one else has popped anything up. I'll give them another minute or two just to see if anything else does crop
so
up.
my email is looncam@loon.org. So I maintain that email. And so if you got any questions or anything like that, you can see, boy, this particular loon cam is it's barely able to see that loon out there. But anyway, happy to answer your questions, and hopefully I didn't bore you too much deep down in the weeds. Believe me, the weeds can get deeper, but it's a system that we've really refined over the years. LPC has been completely supportive. If I say I need this, Harry says, yeah, go do it. And the funding that has come from the chatters has really made a difference in our ability to buy the extra piece of equipment like that power controller, so I don't have to drive up to reboot something. That's $100. We just do it. We just buy it because it just saves. It helps reliability. It brings things back a lot quicker. And so those are the kind of things that we try to put our money and effort into, is the better quality and better reliability. All right, let me stop sharing, and then we can say our goodbyes.
All righty. Yeah, the only other question, I don't know that you'd be able to answer it, and I know I can't, and that is it always a fixed brooding area? And
for Loon Cam 1 and 2 pair, yeah. I mean, we know where they go, and because especially Loon Cam 1 pair, they've been doing that for, I don't know, I mean, that particular one of them I think has been there for 30 years, and one's been there for maybe 15 years. And so, why if it works, don't fix it, I suppose, is their attitude. And so yeah, we do know where they go. Loon Cam 2 pair is they're still relatively, I think this is their 4th or 5th season at that nest. We call that the LPC Hilton because it's such a nice raft. But because there's so many other pairs in the area, and there's the intruders and territorial fights, I mean, I know where they go, but I'm not sure they're there this year. I don't know. But I think the answer is generally yes, but as with all loons, occasionally no.
all righty. Well, looks like that was probably the last question. So I think we're gonna probably call this one done and say thank you, Bill. This was awesome to watch. Oh, someone wants to know, do you paint, or those are your creations?
That's my wife's creation. Yeah, she's quite a painter. They're all over the house. Many of them are not mounted. They're beautiful. She's a very prolific painter. Except for that loon. I have to show you that. That's something. Let me get that. That's worth looking at closely. We bought this probably 20 years ago for a wedding anniversary, and it's all made of wood. Each piece, each color is made of inlaid wood, and it's just beautiful. Favorite loon picture.
That is awesome. So they're already figuring out, the chat's already figuring out ways to rope her into doing something as a fundraiser. We have the suggestion if she could paint something for the LPC auction.
There you go.
And to be fair, if she wanted to, have her get in touch with Lynn. We would totally, that would being able to say Loon camera operator, wife would probably bring in extra money.
Well, thanks very much for having me again, and thanks to everybody that was watching, and thanks for your participation during the Loon Cam season. And we look forward to chatting with you again next year.
All righty. Well, thank you, Bill. This has been awesome. A lot of things I didn't know that go into things. And thank you everyone in the chat for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to like the video because that is always helpful. And all of our work, whether it's the Loon Cam or these talks or any of LPC's work, is all pretty much funded by donations. So don't forget to go to loon.org/donate if you thought any of this was worthwhile and want to throw some money. And we'll see you next week for the next talk. Bye, Bill.
Bye-bye.